Hello, welcome to this week's Midweek Connection. I'm Todd Jordan. I serve as senior pastor here at Strawbridge United Methodist Church. I'm delighted that you've joined me once again. I want to share with you one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible. It comes from 1 Kings chapter 19. Some of you might be familiar with it. Some of you maybe not. It's it gets used a lot, but I want to read to you verses 11 through the first part of verse 13 and talk a little bit about that. It has to do with the prophet Elijah and kind of where he is. So start with verse 11. The Lord says, "Go out, Elijah, go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Now there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. I don't know about you, but if I know the Lord is about to pass by and I see a wind so strong that mountains are being split and rocks are being broken into pieces, or an earthquake or a fire, I'm thinking that sounds like God. But Elijah holds back. It's not until the sound of sheer silence. Other translations say a still small voice. Too often we look for God in the spectacular, um, the sensational, the big stuff. And too often we miss maybe God at work in smaller ways, in less obvious ways, or maybe even sheer silence. How attuned are you to where God is working in your life? Are you expecting God to pass you by? And if you know God is present, are you looking in the right places? Are you letting God speak for God's self? In other words, are you allowing God to speak to you in the way that God is speaking to you, not in the way that you think God is or God should? So I just want to invite you to take some time this week. Um, Elijah was in the midst of the wilderness. He was at a place in his life where the king and queen of Israel were trying to kill him. He had actually gone into the wilderness to commit suicide. If you look earlier in chapter 19, he'd given up. He was so distraught. And he goes into the middle of the wilderness in order to literally starve himself to death, or probably dehydrate. And he falls asleep. God wakes him up, and there's food there. And he eats it, falls asleep again. God wakes him up. He eats some more food. And then when he travels for 40 days and 40 nights to this mountain experience where he encounters God. So if you feel like you're in the middle of a wilderness, if you feel like you're at the end of your rope, rest assured you're in good company. But also know this: God does some of God's best work in the middle of the wilderness. God will provide strength and sustenance for the journey, and God will show up. Have faith. May God bless you, and I'll see you Sunday.